Hello everyone, this is Kat and welcome back to My Hero Academia Podfic. This will be the continuation of Yuuei Survival Guide. This will be part 48, chapter 48. Shit. That's about all that's running through Shota's head as he chases after Izuku. He knew his foster son was fast, but this was a new record even for him. Shota has experience in stuff like this, and Izuku is still leaving him in the dust. He hadn't even realized the kid could haul ass like this. And that quirk usage? Shota hasn't seen anything like it when it comes to Izuku using Black Whip, but of course now, when Shota just can't seem to get close enough to grab the kid, is when Izuku masters that new quirk of his and becomes virtually untouchable. Figures, honestly. That just about sums up his day. Shota can't get close enough to the kid to grab him, and he can't keep pace with the franticness of the quirk that he's using. He'd been trying to call out to Izuku, but he receives no acknowledgement, and the teen doesn't even seem to hear him in his panic state. Izuku trapezes through the trees like some sort of acrobat or something, and Shota can barely keep up with his capture weapon. And not to mention how it launches Izuku into the air in a way that Shota can't possibly emulate with what he's got. Each time it flings the teenager into the sky, Shota's heart jumps to his throat, but Izuku's control is immaculate now, always catching himself swiftly. Shit. Shota stops just shy of slamming into the Yuuei fence, heart hammering in his chest as he watches his kid being flung over said fence. Shit. Izuku, please, talk to me, kid. No response, no acknowledgement. Shota grimaces to himself as he draws his arm back and hooks his capture weapon over the top of the fence. By the time he manages to scale the side of the wall using his capture weapon, Izuku is gone. He has no idea which way the teenager went, has no idea where he'd even go. He'd never expected Izuku to run like this, never expected to need to chase the child or brainstorm where he could have disappeared to. This was out of Izuku's character, and Shota's heart shatters in his chest knowing that this was something they'd done, something that had happened within the last 5 minutes, that had thrown Izuku into such a panic. This is bad. Truthfully, Shota doesn't even know what happened. 1 second they were walking out of the elevator, and then he'd seen Oboro. He'd seen Oboro, clear as day, standing right beside Izuku, touching Izuku, and then his high school friend had disappeared instantly, and Izuku was turning away from them and bolting. He'd seen his dead school friend, who he'd just found out had been turned into a Nomu. Fuck, that's a lot to wrap his head around, isn't it? He should have known his day wasn't going to go well, but he hadn't expected it to turn out as shitty as it had. He should have known when this morning had gone well that a storm was brewing. And storm it did. For 1 second, as Shota stands on the top of the fence and scans the opposite side for any sign of the kid, Shota panics. He doesn't know what to do. He doesn't even know what even really happened just now, can't seem to wrap his head around it. But Izuku is gone, and he can't just stand up here like an idiot. He doesn't know where the teenager would have gone, doesn't even know where to start looking or even which direction he'd disappeared off into. That's the truth of the situation. He doesn't know, but that doesn't mean someone else won't have any idea where the boy could have gone. Izuku had friends, and others who care about him. Shota just prays that someone has at least some idea of where Izuku could be heading. So he spins on his heels and heads back toward the dorms with a new sense of urgency. This isn't a problem he can face alone. He hasn't the slightest idea of where Izuku would go. As he'd stared at that completely barren side of the fence, it had made his stomach coil at the thought of how little they actually knew about Izuku. Where was a place that provided him comfort? Was there somewhere he disappeared to when stressed and overwhelmed? He just didn't know. He stands on the steps outside the 1A dorms for a moment, lungs heaving for air as he stares at the doors. He really has no idea what he's about to find in there. It's not like Izuku had left on the best of terms, and Shota hadn't paid anyone else any mind in his pursuit of Izuku. He knows some of the class had witnessed the chase, and he doesn't know what to make of the Oboro situation. He doesn't even really know what to think about that, but it's a bridge that he's going to have to cross when he gets to it. For now, Izuku's his first priority. His kid running from them, genuinely terrified, will always be his first priority. Shota hesitates for a second longer before pulling out his phone. He knows right now, Shota isn't the one who knows Izuku best. He's lost, and he's just praying someone who knows the teenager will point him in the right direction. All he has to do is reach out. Can you think of anywhere Izuku likes to go that's off campus? He stares at the message that's been sent for no longer than half a second before pocketing his phone and marching into the dorms, and just as he had expected, the 1A kids are crowded in the common area, obviously awaiting his arrival. Sensei! Ida jerks up first, marching into the center of the room as if to play mediator between Shota and the students. Is everything all right? What happened? You left quite unexpectedly, and we were unsure of why. And where's Mito, bro? Kirishima leans to the side where he's perched on the edge of the coffee table, as if he's trying to spot Izuku hiding behind Shota or something. Is he okay? Sensei, is Deku in trouble? Uraraka asked nervously. They all look genuinely worried at the thought, and Shota understands it. Izuku's a good, well-behaved brat, when he's not ignoring the rules, playing vigilante, or forgetting what little self-preservation skills he has, and taking on fights he's ill-prepared for. I mean, you've just never chased any of us like that. Did he do something? Midoriya's not in trouble. Shota bites out, glaring at the group. Maybe it's disagreeable to be taking out his emotions on the students, but he can't be bothered to explain anything, and frankly, this is none of their business. He gets the worry, but that doesn't mean that they're privy to a personal situation. Shota draws in a breath through his nose, eyeing the students. This is none of your concern. You're all excused. Shinso, Bakugo, both of you come with me. I need to speak with the both of you. Everyone else, I'm sure you have something you can be doing that's not prying or hovering, and if you don't, I'd be more than happy to assign chores or suicide sprints to occupy your time. Choose wisely. It's no surprise how fast the students disperse. Any threat of any sort of punishment has them running or on their best behavior, and he thinks they've known him long enough to know when to not push buttons. He usually doesn't mind the pestering from his class, but right now it's getting on his nerves. It feels like only a moment passes, and suddenly Shota is alone in the room with Bakugo and Hitoshi. What the hell is this about? Bakugo crosses his arms over his chest, glaring at Shota over his nose. What the fuck did Deku do this time, and why the hell am I a part of it? Something obviously happened, you jackass, Hitoshi snaps. Or can you just not read a room with that overinflated ego of yours? Listen here, eyebags. Enough! Shota growls, already fed up with them. Bakugo's jaw snaps shut, as his brow furrows in annoyance as Hitoshi wilts guiltily, looking away shamefully. You're both one word away from house arrest. Do not test me, not today. Now both of you, get up, come with me. Each teenager rises to their feet and doesn't say a word as Shota stiffly leads them up the stairs and into the apartment. It's far too quiet up here. His heart breaks when he sees Hisashi sitting on the edge of the couch cushions, head hanging low and face in his hands. He jolts up when he hears the movement, but wilts just as fast when he sees Shota without their child. He doesn't even seem to realize Shota has Bakugo and Hitoshi with him. He'd been that laser-focused on the lack of Izuku. Shota, you didn't catch him? Hisashi's wobbly voice feels like a dagger through Shota's heart. Shota looks away guiltily. There's a small part of him that's immensely proud of the teenager for honing control of his quirk and managing to outrun Shota when he needed to. It was a good display of how much the teen had grown in his class and training, but the bigger part of him, the part of him who is this boy's guardian and not his teacher, is so completely wrecked and worried that he'd felt like he needed to run. There had been no thought. Izuku had sprinted purely on instinct. And it honestly scared Shota that his kid had the skills to leave everyone in the dust now. That even he, with his years of underground hero work and capture weapon expertise, had been left in Izuku's dust. He was too fast with that new quirk of his. I could barely keep up. I've never seen him use it so fluidly. I could have heard him if I erased it. You didn't see how he was moving, Hisashi. He made it over the gate. I didn't see where he went. Hang on. Hitoshi marches forward, looking between the two men with narrowed eyes. What the hell did the two of you do to him? I've never seen Izuku so frantic like that. Why were you even chasing him anyways? Because he was running. Shota deadpans with a glare, shot in Hitoshi's direction. And he was panicking. No one makes smart choices when they're panicking. I wanted to make sure he was safe, but he obviously managed to outrun me, and now we don't know where he is. Why the hell was the nerd panicking in the first place? Shota turns his head to the side to see Bakugo watching him over his nose. There's an unusual calmness in the ashen-haired boy's expression, but Shota wholeheartedly believes it's a calm before the storm that he very much wants to avoid. The fuck do you two Fosters do to him? He may be a shitty nerd, but if either of you... Katsuki. Hisashi's voice is scarily serious, yet entirely calm. We'd never do anything to hurt Izuku. Nothing intentional, at least. I don't know what happened. He just... And he was there, and then he was gone, and Izuku, God, I don't even know. I can't wrap my head around it. Hisashi hesitates, scrubbing at his face with his palms before finally looking over at Shota. Shota, did you even... I need to know I'm not crazy. Did you? Did I... Shota swallows. Did I see him too? Hisashi draws in a sharp inhale. Shota hadn't really answered, but at the same time he had. See who? Hitoshi's calculating gaze sweeps between Shota and Hisashi. Someone who's not... Hisashi gnaws on his bottom lip. He's not really around anymore. He shouldn't be around anymore. It's just not... It couldn't have been. We thought we saw someone who... Shota hesitates. Someone who died. Someone who's been gone for a long time now. Hang on. Bakugo jerks up. You mean you're telling us that you saw a dead guy with Deku? That's fucked up, but it tracks for Deku. Shota whips to face Bakugo, whose sharp eyes are flicking between his teachers. Shota's mouth feels dry when he forces it open to speak. What? What? Bakugo repeats, eyebrows furrowing before understanding settles in his features. Wait. You two didn't know? The surprise on Bakugo's face is minuscule, but it's there. Shit. The ashen-haired teen shakes his head. I thought Auntie, that bitch, would have ratted Deku out the second she had the chance. My mom told me that she was arrested, and I know Aizawa-sensei wouldn't keep his nose out of it when it came to Deku. I saw how you were in the hospital. You met her. Didn't you, Sensei? You must have seen her. She's always going off about how Deku's insane, how he's sick in the head, and I believed her too until he showed you. Hitoshi turns wide-eyed to Bakugo. Shit. He told me you knew, but I didn't think an asshole like you would ever believe him. Color me surprised. Damn nerd showed you too, then. Bakugo squints over his nose at Hitoshi. I knew before you did, you shitty extra. Just 'cause I knew doesn't mean I believed the head case. No one did, but yeah, Deku made his asshole ghost of a friend walk through me or some shit. I wanted proof, but I didn't think that he'd be a dick about it. Coldest shit I've ever felt in my life. Then the bastard played with the lights. Hard to ignore that. I'm still pissed he brought a ghost to my house. Hang on. Hisashi blinks between the two boys, eyes wide. What are you talking about? Deku sees ghosts. It's Bakugo who says it, as if it's obvious. Always has. You mean to tell me you two never noticed anything wrong with him? I'm not saying he's weird or anything, but Deku's fucking odd. That's just who the dumb nerd is. He hides it better now, but he's always slipping up. I figured you two would have figured that one out already. Doesn't he live with you? Shota takes a second to let that sink in before he draws an unsteady breath. His gaze shoots toward Hitoshi, who doesn't look surprised. You're telling me you knew all this time? Shota demands from his nephew. You knew, and you didn't tell anyone. Didn't tell us? Hitoshi, what the hell? Did you need to know? The purple-haired teen arches an eyebrow. Seems to me this doesn't harm him, or put him in danger in any way. He didn't want you to know. I respected that. He's my friend, Uncle Shota. He's my friend, and he trusted me. I didn't see any reason to break that trust. Uncle? Bakugo whips his head around to face Hitoshi. So that's why you're so close with Deku. Figures. I thought he was just collecting the riffraff like that asshole Icy Hot who Deku somehow managed to befriend. Deku's always been a sucker for the friendless losers. Collects them like stray puppies or some shit. I'd be offended if it was anyone else but you saying that. Hitoshi snaps back. How you have any friends is beyond me. I don't know how a nice guy like Izuku could ever consider you a friend. He was my friend first, you shitty bastard. Bakugo roars, turning sharply to glare at Hitoshi. Knock it off, Shota snaps. The two of you are insufferable together, you know that? Bakugo, don't call your classmates names, and Hitoshi, quit picking fights when you know you'll set them off. You both need to grow up. You two can argue about all this later. I don't care who is Izuku's friend first. It doesn't matter. Izuku is gone. And apparently there's way more to this than either of us thought. We need to find him. Right. Sorry. Hitoshi bows his head shamefully. He glances over at Bakugo, mistrustingly, but doesn't say anything to the other teenager. What do you need from us, then? Are you sending us out to help search? You're the last two I'd send out to look for him. Shota scoffs, ignoring the matching looks of offense. Let the adults handle this. You two know Izuku best, though. Where would he go? Is there anywhere you can think of that he'd go to if he was overwhelmed? Anywhere that provides him comfort? Somewhere he'd go when scared? Any specific places he likes? Bakugo hesitates, thoughtfully. There's a big park downtown that my mom used to bring us to when we were brats. Useless nerd followed me around like a damned mutt there, along with all those other shitty extras. There's a playground and a creek, a bridge. He used to like spending time there, that's all I know. Deku didn't get out much. He's a homebody. I doubt the loser would go to my house, and he can't go home anymore. Nowhere else he'd go. That I know of, at least. We're not exactly close anymore. Anything helps, Hisashi assures gently, earning himself a glare shot over Bakugo's nose. It's relatively soft, though, maybe even worried. Hisashi doesn't seem to take any offense. There's a playground by your guys' apartment he likes, too, Hitoshi adds after a second. A couple blocks away. Hard to miss. He brought me there. The place is something out of a horror movie, honestly, but he seemed to like it anyways. Run down and overgrown, abandoned. We probably got lead poisoning from the paint. Wonderful. Shota scoffs, bowing his head in a nod nonetheless. I'm glad we're hearing about this death trap of a playground now. Okay, thank you. We'll look into these spots. You're both dismissed. I assume I don't need to remind either of you that what we discussed in this room does not leave this apartment. Yeah. Bakugo pushes himself up off the couch. Just find the useless nerd before he gets himself into trouble or something. Deku's probably catatonic at this point, always anxious and skittish. He kept this secret for a reason, so don't fuck it up. He likes you two for some godforsaken reason. Don't hurt him. Nerd doesn't need that in his life anymore. With that, Bakugo storms out of the apartment without another word. He almost sounded nice. Hitoshi blinks in surprise. Shota ignores the comment, turning away to a worryingly quiet Hisashi. We're going to find him, Hisashi. Japan is a big place. The blonde gnaws on his bottom lip. He was scared of us, Shota. No, Hitoshi interjects with a frown. He's scared of what you'll think of him. Not scared of you. When he told me about his ghost friend, he was terrified of either of you finding out. Apparently Ro's been haunting your apartment for years, clings to you two. Now, I suppose he likes you guys. I suppose Izuku didn't want to scare you guys. I never really asked why he was so insistent you two didn't know, but I assumed it was something to do with his parents, you know? Ro? Hisashi repeats, sounding winded. The blonde shoots Shota a wide-eyed look, before looking back at Hitoshi. Hitoshi, how much do you know about this ghost? At this, Hitoshi's brow furrows in confusion. Just what Izuku told me. His name is Ro. I think he's a teenager. He never told me that. It's just a vibe I get. He's played games with me, really likes your game console, and he's, surprisingly good at it for a dead guy. He's a romance kind of guy. I don't know. He's just always been a package deal with Izuku. Where Izuku goes, Ro goes. He seemed nice enough. Have you ever seen this ghost? Shota asks slowly. No, Hitoshi frowns. He's a dead guy with no solid form. How would I see him? I'm not Izuku. I haven't seen the guy, but I have talked to him. Talked to him? Hisashi repeats, looking more and more frazzled by the second. How? Well, Hitoshi bites his lip, glancing between the two men hesitantly. I doubt he'd be able to do it now. Izuku said Ro is able to use his energy. I think that's what he said, at least. Without Izuku around, he's limited, and it tracks, too. When Izuku was kidnapped, Ro didn't have the strength to use the game controller to talk, which was how we had talked before, so he had to resort to using the lights, and, it worked, too. That's how I was able to find the 1A kids and figure out a plan for the rescue mission. He was with us the whole time, I think. You were guided into an act of vigilantism by a ghost. Shota can't seem to keep the incredulity out of his tone when he processes that. Oboro had enlisted Hitoshi into a rescue mission for Izuku from the afterlife? What the fuck? When you put it like that, it sounds weird. Hitoshi puffs his cheeks out. We both wanted the same thing, to get Izuku back. He had information I needed, so we teamed up for a cause. Now, what's this about the two of you seeing a ghost? Who was it? Was it Ro? I can't think of any other ghost that Izuku's mentioned, so it had to have been Ro. It was Oboro. Shota breathes out. Our school friend. The one who died on internships. Oboro. Hitoshi blinks slowly as he processes. Oboro. That jackass played me. Damn, Izuku, all this time I've been hanging out with your friend Oboro? That's actually kind of weird. I don't know what to think about that. Shota startles, hand reaching out to protect Hitoshi when the lights overhead flicker. Shota's heart pounds in his chest as his gaze shoots up to the ceiling. He's here, Hitoshi whispers sing-songingly. Hitoshi! Hisashi squeaks out. Don't be creepy. I'm freaked out enough already without you acting like a creepy kid in a horror movie. I'm already struggling to wrap my brain around this. Hitoshi lifts his hands in mock surrender, attention lifting to the ceiling. It's okay. I'm sorry. Look, hello, Oboro. Finally figured you out. You're in Izuku's little logical ruse. I'm a little salty that you two lied to me. See? Easy. It's like talking to a person who only sorta exists. The lights flicker again as if in answer. Shota is distantly reminded of that night he'd found Izuku on the streets, following faulty street lamps that had done this exactly. Oboro had been back then too. Shota knows he never would have found the kid without those street lights. Holy shit. He's really... Hisashi croaks out breathlessly. He's really here? Shota, I knew there was something here. And it was... Oh my god, all those times you called me crazy for seeing lights turning on and off, I was right. Shota swallows roughly before shaking his head. Okay. Fine, you were right. Now, can I bring everyone back around to the fact that Izuku is gone and we don't know where he is? Ro might know. Hisashi's brow furrows, gaze lifting once again to the light fixture. Do you know where Izuku is right now? The lights flick off, and then they're blanketed in darkness. Okay, Hitoshi suddenly sounds worried. That means no. He doesn't know where Izuku is. Shit. Shota breathes out, worry tugging at his heart. He hears Hisashi draw in a shaky, worried breath, but Shota can't force himself to look toward his husband, doesn't want to see fear or worry. Shota's phone buzzes in his pocket, and he's quick to pull it out, eyes settling on a new text notification. Hopefulness flutters in his chest at the response. Off campus, young Midori was awfully fond of Dagoba Beach when we used to train around there. He liked to sit and watch the ocean. I'm afraid that's the only place I can think of. We truly didn't spend any time together anywhere but the beach. Why? Is something the matter, Aizawa? Shota grits his teeth, leaving the man on red. He can fill the retired pro in when he knows Izuku is safe, or, if worse comes to worse, when they ask the man for his help if they can't track Izuku down before nightfall. It's not much time, but Shota's hopeful they can make good time as 3 pro heroes. If they have target locations that Izuku is more likely to be at, it's not them just scouring the city for him. Shota hopes and prays they find him fast. He does not like not knowing where Izuku is, and they've already spent enough time trying to make heads or tails of whatever the hell is going on. Oboro's place in all this. Okay, Hisashi, you take the park Bakugo had mentioned and that cafe he liked by Night Eye's agency. They should be around the same area. I'll check the cafe he used to work at and Dagoba Beach, and I'll send Nem to check the playground by the off-campus apartment Hitoshi that mentioned, and I'll see if she's willing to wait there just in case he goes home. Hitoshi, you stay up here just in case. Text us if he returns, got it? Got it, the teen mutters dutifully before hesitating. You're not, mad at him, are you? I don't think he kept this a secret out of spite or anything. I mean, when he told me he was, genuinely terrified of you guys finding out. I don't know why. Hitoshi looks away, mouth pulling downward in a frown. I think he knows more about all of this, probably pieced everything together ages ago and kept it to himself, but I don't know. He was so scared. Just, if you hurt him, I'll never forgive either of you. Never. He's my best friend. He was the first person to honestly befriend me, the first person to not be scared of me, even knowing what I can do. I love you guys, but if you break him, I'll never forgive you. We never want to hurt him, Hisashi whispers, dry washing his face stressfully. Nothing will change how we feel about the little listener. I thought he knew that. We'll find him, Shota repeats. We'll find him, and we'll try to understand. Shota scans the beach from the boardwalk, a sense of dread settling in his stomach because Izuku just isn't here. His heart drops into his stomach, and he stills as he thinks. The teenager hadn't been at the cafe he'd worked at. He hadn't gone home to the apartment off campus. Neither Hisashi nor Nomuri had texted saying that they found him, and they hadn't heard anything from Hitoshi either. It's been hours now. Izuku was still missing. Damn it. Where the hell could the kid be? Shota scans the beach one more time, the profanities he's about to heave out dying on his lips when he finally spots something promising. Sneakers. Red sneakers. Just the barest sliver of red peeking out from under the boardwalk a few feet away from where Shota's standing. He draws in an unsteady breath as he moves swiftly to the stairs. He tries not to let himself feel relieved. Just because it looks promising doesn't mean it is promising. Those could be anyone's shoes. That could be anyone sitting under the boardwalk. His hands itch to tug his phone out of his pocket so he can tell his husband he found their kid to offer that relief he knows they all need. Him and Hisashi specifically, but there's no point until he's 100% certain that Izuku is down there. The only thing worse than their child disappearing is being offered false hope that he's been found, only to be devastated all over again if Shota happens to be wrong and that's some other kid's shoes. He takes the stairs 2 at a time until his boots are sinking into the sand at the bottom, and he's rushing toward the red shoes, and, oh, thank whatever deity exists out there that he sees the kid curled into a little ball, clutching his legs to his chest, with his face buried in his knees. Izuku's curls are wind mussed, and his features are completely hidden in his knees. Shota's heart shatters at the sight. Shota sucks in another shaky breath, and he finally tugs his phone out from his pocket, sending out a quick text to the group chat between him, Hitoshi, Hisashi, and Nomuri that he had eyes on Izuku. He's careful, not to say that he's got him, because, in all honesty, he doesn't. That chase just hours earlier had put everything into perspective for Shota. At the end of the day, Izuku's powerful and he's smart, even when he'd let panic lead him. If Izuku wanted to disappear again, there's very little Shota could do to stop him, especially if Black Whip aids him. He hopes the kid doesn't run again, but it's not out of the question. He'd never seen such fear in Izuku's eyes as he'd... What had he done? Shoved away a ghost? Shoved Oboro away. Oboro, who the kid had appeared to be quite familiar with. It hadn't looked like Izuku was unfamiliar with the ghost of Shota's best friend. Shota tries not to think about that. He still doesn't know what to make of that, and he truthfully wants to hear it from Izuku, not Bakugo, not Hitoshi, not Midori Inko, or Izuku's medical files, just Izuku. He's the only one who can give them an honest answer. He's the only one who understands this completely. Shota steps closer, slowly, not wanting to scare the kid. Something unpleasant settles in his stomach as he realizes he's approaching his kid as if Izuku is some wounded animal that'll lash out and bolt away. Izuku doesn't stir. Shota wonders if the kid has even realized that he was no longer alone. Shota wonders how long Izuku had been down here. The whipping breeze of the ocean washes over him and probably making him far colder than he should be. Shota's reminded of that night he'd found Izuku alone on the street, in the middle of the night. When do I leave? Shota startles at the voice, frowning thoughtfully to himself when he glances back down at Izuku. His face is still buried in his knees, and he doesn't appear to have noticed him, but he'd still spoken. And it was just the two of them. And where do you think you're going? Shota can't help but ask as he eases closer. You know something I don't, kiddo. Care to enlighten me? Izuku finally lifts his head. Not much, just enough for him to be able to settle his chin on the top of one of his knees. Red, watery green eyes settle on Shota, and Shota's heart is in his throat as he realizes Izuku had been out here crying for hours. He must have been so scared. You saw, Izuku forces out, voice watery. He wipes his cheeks on his sleeve, bowing his head once again. You guys saw him, and that means you know. So, where are you going to send me? I know you're going to want to get rid of me. Why wouldn't you? So, when am I getting expelled? How long until my social worker comes to take me away? Because you don't want me anymore. Please, I can't sit in limbo again. Tell me up front. Expelled? Get rid of you? Shota repeats in utter surprise. What are you talking about? You're not going to get expelled. This has nothing to do with school, and we're not going to... Why the hell would we involve your social worker in something like this? If anything, Hisashi and I will be the ones in trouble for not keeping a better eye on you. Trust me, Izuku, you're not going anywhere. Don't lie to me! Izuku raises his voice, and it's the first time Shota thinks he'd ever heard Izuku yell at him. Izuku's quiet for just a second after the outburst, and then his voice has softened, wobbly and mistrusting. Please don't lie to me. You can't lie to me. I need the truth. I can't live on false hope again. I can't do it. Please, just tell me the truth up front. I'm not lying, Izuku. Then I don't understand. Izuku sounds so defeated, unfurling so he can lift his hands up to lace through his curls, obviously in distress. I don't understand. You saw him. I know you did. You saw him. You saw what I can do. You saw how much of a freak I am. You know who that was, and why aren't you mad? Be mad at me, Shota. I can handle it. Just don't lie to me. Don't lull me into a false sense of security. I can't go through that again, please. Izuku. Shota's mouth feels dry as he inches closer. He lets himself fall to his knees in front of the boy, glad for the sand there to break his descent. He doesn't dare get any closer, but he's glad Izuku had let him get this close. You're not a freak. You can't seriously be saying that. Izuku fists his eyes, and he lets out a humorless laugh. You can't say that after I don't even know what I did today. After everything that happened in the hallway, he touched me, and you both saw him, and you know him. I know you know him. He was your best friend. You've told me, and he's told me. I've seen the pictures. I knew he could. That I could touch him, but I didn't know that he was visible. I don't know what changed, but you... And Zashi, you saw him. I know you did. You're not supposed to. He's not supposed to exist. I'm the freak, Izuku whimpers out brokenly, burying his face back in his knees. I'm the weird, quirkless freak who sees things he shouldn't. It's never going to go away. I was an idiot for thinking I could have this. Just leave me alone. You don't have to bother with me anymore. Izuku. I don't understand why you're even here. Izuku mumbles into his knee as if he hadn't even registered Shota had even spoken. I don't know why you're even looking for me. You can go. I don't expect you to stay. Shota doesn't know where all this is coming from. Had he really thought this? All this time? His entire life, does he really think it's true? This was an insecurity they hadn't even realized existed. This secret that he'd kept so close to his chest, a self-loathing they hadn't realized the boy was struggling with. Shota doesn't know how to fix this. Another humorless laugh comes from the boy, one that breaks off into shaky sobs. Why haven't you gone? The cat's out of the bag. You know, you both know. I understand if you want to stop fostering me, that's what I get for getting too comfortable. I knew better, you know. I didn't want to get comfortable, but you made it so easy. I didn't want to get used to having a family, but I'm just selfish, and I wanted it so badly. I didn't want to love something, but I knew it would all go away if I screwed it up. It always does. I don't know how to keep things. No one wants me. No one wants a freak. You are not a freak. Shota snaps, probably too hostile, considering everything, but it does seem to snap Izuku out of his thoughts. Shota's not sure he considers it a win, as the boy wilts, bottom lip wobbling. Shota sucks in a calming breath before continuing. You're not a freak. And you're not losing anything, Izuku. We want you. Hizashi and I, Hitoshi, Yuuei, all your classmates and friends, Yagi and Oboro, I think. I don't understand enough to really... Look, we all want you. You're so important, kid. And I don't know how you can't see that. You're my teacher, the teen whispers. You have to say that. I'm having a crisis and I'm clearly emotionally unstable, so you'd say anything to calm me down. I most certainly do not have to say anything, Shota scoffs. And I'm not your teacher right now, I'm your guardian. But you're right, I'd say the same damn thing as a teacher, because you're my student, you're my kid. I don't have to say anything I'd want to. But right now, you're my son, not my student, and frankly, I'm so pissed off at the world for making you think this about yourself. I'm devastated. You think so little of yourself, and we never knew that. We never helped you. I've never been as scared as I was today, Izuku. Seeing a ghost? The boy asked meekly. I'm sorry. No. Shota shakes his head, cutting the teen off easily. Watching you run from me. Seeing you terrified of me. Of us. We're supposed to be the people that you can always trust. I was terrified when I couldn't catch up to you or stop you without maybe accidentally hurting you. I was so scared when I couldn't find you after you had gotten over that fence. Hizashi has been in hysterics since I came home without you. You're so important to us, Izuku, and nothing you say or do, what you can do, will change that. We want you in our lives. But I'm different. What's so wrong with being different? Shota finds himself asking. Izuku freezes, but Shota isn't sure if it's a good thing or a bad thing, but he forces himself on anyways. We live in a world of quirks, Izuku. I don't think there even is a normal in this day and age. You can walk down the street and see a mutated bear person or a person with a turtle shell and you think nothing of it. You see people with several eyes, or legs, or whatever else this world has to offer. Sir Night-Eye could glimpse into the future. Hagekure is invisible, Ashido is pink and secretes acid. Shoji has doubly arms. What's so different about your quirk? So you can see ghosts. There's nothing wrong with that. It's not like those things, though, Izuku whispers, grabbing a handful of sand granules. He lets them pour out of his fist like an hourglass. You can see all those things. People understand those quirks. Those are normal, by quirk standards. Mutations aren't the same thing as what I do. It just makes me weird. It scares people. Something no one else sees. Something that scares everyone else, and is some dirty secret. No one believes me. Izuku, we saw the ghost of our dead high school friend. Shota reminds dryly. I believe you. Hizashi believes you. Hitoshi believes you to the point that he threatened us. Even Bakugo believes you. Only because he can do things now. Izuku argues furiously, wiping at his cheeks like he is annoyed by the overwhelmed tears still slipping down them. It being active now doesn't change the fact that it wasn't. What about before, when Oboro couldn't interact with me? Before I even met him? Back when I was diagnosed quirkless, and everyone kept telling me I'd grow out of it, that it wasn't real, that I was unwell, that I couldn't possibly see ghosts because that's crazy. And you know what? Izuku sucks in a desperate breath, gaze flicking up to Shota's eyes as he offers a defeated smile. I thought I was insane. For so long, Shota, that's all I knew. That's what everyone told me. It's how I grew up, and it's logical when you think about it. Anyone would react the same way. What have I told you at the start of the school year, back before I could touch him, back before there was any proof that it wasn't just me being sick in the head? Izuku's attention drops to his shoes, head bowing. You'd have thought that I was insane, too. That's how it is. That's how it always is. The boy's quiet for a second, no longer than a second. That would have been the last straw for you. You can even argue because you were already so against having me in your class. Oboro told me that you'd planned on expelling me. You already didn't like my quirk. You made that obvious during the apprehension test. So, had you found out I was crazy too, you would have canned me, Shota. I barely survived that first day, even without everyone knowing that I was a freak. Izuku. Izuku shakes his head, pushing on. If everyone in my life thought that I was crazy when they found out, why wouldn't you too? My dad left because of it. My mom walked out on me because of it. Auntie and uncle used to look at me like I had some kind of, delicate mind that would break if I was ever pushed, until I got better and I stopped seeing them. And Kachan didn't believe me. He was my best friend, and he still called me crazy. You were this teacher who I knew planned to expel me the second he could. You wouldn't have believed me.
Hitoshi believed you when he found out.
Because Oboro pushed me on a swing. Izuku hesitates before adding. And he saw a levitating book that Oboro was reading. I couldn't talk my way out of that one without Hitoshi feeling like I did growing up. Like he was insane. I don't want anyone to feel like I did.
What about Bakugo?
Oboro was so pissed off that he charged through Kachan. He was trying to protect me. For 15 years he didn't. Those don't count. Without actions backing me up, which were impossible before we met, Oboro and I, no one would believe me.
I believe you.
Izuku shoots Shota an unamused look. You saw him.
There's a moment of silence.
I'm tired of people telling me I'm crazy, Izuku admits quietly. I'm tired of letting people in and watching them leave when I turn out to not be normal. I'm tired of foolishly letting myself get comfortable, waiting on bated breath for it all to disappear when people finally figure me out. I was only trying to protect myself. What you don't know can't hurt you, right? I wanted to be normal.
Shota's jaw clicks shut, and Izuku doesn't seem too keen on adding anything else. Shota doesn't know what to do now. He doesn't know how to break through all the walls of trauma Izuku has protecting him. How are you supposed to get through to someone, a child, who felt like they needed to isolate parts of themselves for safety? Shota can't change what this kid has been through. He can't go back in time and smack some sense into Izuku's parents or doctors, or even the Bakugo family as much as he wants to. What's done is done, and this hesitance the teenager has is perfectly acceptable of a byproduct of that. Shota can't change that. He still knows far too little. He doesn't understand this, but he does understand Izuku, and he can't stand to see Izuku like this. I don't know what you want me to say. Shota breathes out quietly. It feels like he's fighting a losing argument. After a tense second, Shota continues. I can't speak for what I would have done, but you proved yourself to me that day. I was going to expel you, but I didn't. You proved me wrong, and I admired that about you. You weren't expelled that first day because I saw something in you, and every day since, I've been so glad that you managed to change my mind. You never cease to amaze me, Izuku, and now that I know the secret of your quirk, I'm even prouder. Shota hesitates, dry washing his face in an attempt to scrub some organization into his thoughts. Look, I haven't completely wrapped my head around you being able to see Oboro, of you being friends with him when he's been gone for so long, but it's not some condemning thing. Frankly, I'm still coming to terms with the fact that ghosts even exist, kid. Izuku snorts a quiet laugh at that. Not very logical, is it? No. Shota bites back a small smile. The humor fades when he forces himself back to the current situation. It's not logical, but that doesn't mean that it's not true. This is a part of you, Izuku, and it might take a second for us to wrap our heads around it, but that doesn't change how we feel about you. We've known you for so long, nearly a year now, and this minor detail doesn't change anything for us. You're our kid. We're so happy with you around, and I can't even think about you leaving, kid. The thought never crossed my mind once. I love you, okay? Izuku stills, wide eyes turning back to Shota. You do? The man hesitates, unsure if he's made a miscalculation, but then he thinks of Hisashi and the night that he told his husband about Izuku's quirk. Just admit you love him already, grouchy pants. Shota sucks in a nervous breath and continues softly. Yeah, of course, kid, we both do. We love having you as our kid. We love having you as a member of our family. We love how close you and Hitoshi are. How you're the piece that we didn't even know was missing. We love how kind and sweet and loyal you are. We love how easily you've become someone so important to us. We love you. I love you. Izuku's moving before Shota even realizes. When had the kid gotten so fast? 1 second, the kid is sat across from him. In the next, Izuku's wrapped around him, hugging him so tightly that Shota almost can't breathe. Shota blinks owlishly as he wraps his arms around the kid in return, waiting just a second for the boy to pull away, if he wants to, before squeezing Izuku back just as tightly, just like he'd wanted to, since he'd spotted those red shoes. He thinks Izuku might be crying again, can feel wetness on his neck, where Izuku has buried his face between the skin and the capture weapon. I love you too, Izuku cries out, clutching at Shota. I tried so hard not to. I can't lose this again, Dad. I've already lost everyone else because I'm different. I can't lose you and Papa again. I tried so hard to be normal. I love you. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Please don't send me away. I can't do it. I can't do it again. Hey. Shota quiets his voice, lifting one hand off of Izuku's back to pet down his curls. Shh, it's okay. You're not losing us, all right? We're not sending you anywhere. Anyone who's left you or mocked you or ridiculed you over something like this is an asshole, okay? You're perfect, the way you are, super quirk, ghosts and all. There is nothing that you can do that will ever chase us away or make us send you away. You're stuck with us until you decide otherwise. We'd love to have you as long as you want to stay. I love you. The boy warbles out, and Shota can just tighten his hold and hope that he's offering the comfort Izuku so desperately needs. He wishes Hisashi were here. He's definitely the one out of the two of them that handles emotions better, but Shota's also a bit thankful he'd found the kid first. Maybe it's because Izuku was his first. His student, one of his 1A gremlins that he'd give his life for without a thought. The problem child who'd come to him specifically for extra training with his quirk. The kid who he'd found on the streets after being abandoned and brought home. The kid who'd somehow managed to weasel his way into Shota's heart. Izuku had been his long before Shota had taken guardianship over the kid. I love you too, sunshine. Shota whispers into Izuku's curls, hugging him back. Please, please never do this again, Izuku. Don't ever feel like you need to run from us to protect yourself. You should never feel scared of us, and if you do, we're doing something wrong as your guardians. We will never hurt you. We need you to remember that. Sorry, Izuku sniffles. I didn't mean to. I wasn't thinking, and everything just happened so suddenly, and Oboro was... I know. Shota hushes. It was a fear response. We know. I saw the look in your eyes, and after all this, I think I understand you better now. I still hate that we prompted this. I'm sorry you've been holding on to this for so long, that you've been scared and we never knew. I never meant for you to find out, Izuku whispers, pulling away just enough to look up at Shota's face. I was such a jerk to him, to Oboro. He told me everything, and I said... He told me that you saw him today. You did, didn't you? When you were called away from class. He's, all for one, made him into a Nomu. Shota's heart stalls in his chest. If he hadn't believed Izuku before, which he had, of course, he sure as hell would have now. There's absolutely no way the kid could know about that. Not unless... He's really been hanging around. He never really left, Izuku admits quietly. I met him on the first day of school. I thought he was a student when he followed you into the classroom, but, you know, he was the one who had nudged me toward trusting you. I'm glad he did. That's a long time, Shota swallows. I don't know what to think about that. Sorry, Izuku whispers against Shota's chest. No. Shota gently pushes Izuku away, holding him at arm's length so he can see his face. Don't apologize for that idiot hanging around for over 13 years. You'd think he would have had something better to do or something. Some sort of afterlife, maybe. I don't know. I'm actually not surprised that he started clinging to you. You're a lot alike, you know? I didn't even believe in any of that, but now you're really putting things into perspective, kid. Shota feels his phone buzz in his pocket and doesn't even need to pull it out. Now it's Hisashi checking in. Hisashi who must be desperate to see the kid unharmed after how he left. How do you feel about heading back? Shota prompts quietly. I think we should talk. All of us. Think you're up for that? We just want to understand this. Understand you. I think so, Izuku mutters. You promise you're not mad? I promise. Shota bows his head in a gentle nod. I'm not mad. And Hisashi won't be either. We were worried about you, not angry. Just glad you're okay. And Hisashi will be too when he gets his hands on you. I hope you're prepared to be smothered in affection. Izuku lets a small smile tilt on his lips. Definitely ready. Oboro knew he'd messed up. The second that he'd called Izuku selfish. The mere second that he'd muttered that word, he desperately wanted to take it back. He'd wanted to take it back and apologize profusely because he knows Izuku better than anyone. And he knows Izuku is anything but selfish. Izuku's all heart. He'd give up anything if it meant helping someone else. Time and time again, Oboro had watched and even chided the teenager for never stopping to consider himself. Izuku was far too kind, far too willing to put himself last for the sake of others. And Oboro knew that. Oboro knew Izuku's weaknesses, and that's what he had gone for in the heat of the moment. He's not sure he'll ever be able to forgive himself for that, for using Izuku's weakness for his own gain, trying to guilt a boy who just wants to have a family and feel safe in his life. He'd moved too fast. Looking back now, that's exactly where he'd gone wrong. He let everything pile up on his shoulders, had not taken a second to process what he'd been through, in what could have been more than an hour, what he'd seen and felt in that prison cell, and found out about himself, and instead of having a conversation that he knows Izuku would have been more inclined to consider, asking calmly and talking all this through with the green-haired boy instead of springing it on him so suddenly and demanding and accusing him. Oboro thinks the worst part about all this is that he hadn't been able to help it. He was so overwhelmed, and they weren't seeing eye to eye. He'd so desperately wanted Izuku to see how he did, how he'd been in his body, how his body still existed somewhere out there, and there was a chance he could have it back. Izuku had been so against it, and Oboro understands why. Doing as demanded would be outing his secret that he kept so close to his chest, but Oboro hadn't been in the right state of mind to see that reason. Oboro was so upset and angry, only able to see one thing in that moment: getting his body back. He hadn't considered Izuku. The teen was right. He hadn't stopped for even a second in his panic and clarity, in the high of feeling his body again that had all but blinded him. And that was wrong. That wasn't fair. He knows what Izuku's been through. He knows why Izuku had kept the secret so close to his chest, locked away with a padlock. Izuku had been traumatized by his father leaving when he was little, and his mother walking away without a word, and everyone in his life finding out and leaving him. He was scared, and he had a right to be. Izuku had come so far when it comes to Shota and Hisashi. Oboro had seen how hard Izuku had worked for this, how long it's taken him to come around to this idea of a family. He's so happy for the kid. He'd been nudging Izuku in this direction since finding out that he was neglected at home. Anyone in Izuku's shoes would be terrified of losing something that they'd always craved and never had a chance to have. Izuku was in a good spot, and what Oboro had asked, what he demanded, was for Izuku to gamble with the happily ever after he'd always wanted, on the off chance Oboro might be able to have his body back. And Oboro thinks, had he gone about this another way, Izuku might have actually considered the request if Oboro had given him a moment to process this instead of jumping on him and letting his emotions do the talking. One frantically overwhelmed person asking something terrifying of another frantically overwhelmed person. Izuku would have wanted to help. Izuku would want to help if he could. That's what he does. He helps people. Oboro hadn't known how to fix this. He'd seen the heartbreak in Izuku's face as soon as the word had left his mouth. He hadn't known what to say as the teenager had turned the word back around onto him, and Oboro had never felt more selfish in his life, as what he'd said finally washed over him. Logically, he knows it had been the heat of the moment talking. He doesn't think either of them were in the right, but neither of them were in the wrong either. Oboro thinks he has a right to ask, but Izuku also has a right to be scared of what this would stir up. It was such a delicate situation that they'd both lost control of. Emotions had gotten the better of them. Oboro tried to reach out, chest tightening with regret when Izuku had pulled away from him in the way the teenager never has before. But he couldn't leave it now. Couldn't walk away from this how it was. Couldn't let Izuku walk away from how it was. He'd reached out and touched the teen like he always did, and the elevator dinged. And then Shota and Hisashi were there all of a sudden, staring wide-eyed with mouths agape. Oboro had hardly had a second to think before Hisashi had muttered his name in shock, and Izuku was shoving him back forcefully, to which Oboro let himself stumble back in shock before the teenager was taking off running. Shota whipped past Oboro urgently in pursuit of Izuku, nothing but steel-toe work boots pounding on the stairs as he called desperately for Izuku. Hisashi seemed stunned into silence, unmoving, and he wanted to follow Izuku. He wanted to follow after him and keep an eye on him like he always does, but his legs felt rooted in place, and all he can do is stare at Hisashi, who's staring at him, at where he'd been. Hisashi's voice calling out his name rings in Oboro's ears. Hisashi had seen him. Touching Izuku, it had made him visible. Izuku had made him visible. Hisashi and Shota had seen him because Izuku made him visible. They saw him. After so long his friends had seen him, acknowledged him, in a way he'd so desperately craved, especially after that moment that he'd been unable to move in his own body, watching them break before his eyes. For a while, Oboro tries to wrap his head around that. He sits in the corner of the apartment when Hisashi finally shakes himself from his stupor and goes into the apartment to wait for Shota. Oboro wishes he was surprised to see Shota returning without Izuku, but he's really not. He tries to follow the conversation taking place, but he just can't help but dissect his fight with Izuku now that he's not overcome by a tsunami of emotions. He tunes in when he hears Hitoshi calling his name, not Ro, but his real name. He humors the kid by playing with the lights when prompted. Hisashi's reactions would be amusing if Izuku was here too, if he hadn't felt cornered, so scared, in this secret and ran from everything. Oboro wishes he'd have followed the teenager now, but he also knows he's the last person Izuku would want to see after everything. It's better if he waits here. He can't cause problems here. Oboro draws his knees up to his chest, comforted by Hitoshi's presence in the apartment as Shota and Hisashi try and leave to find the teen. Oboro wonders where Izuku would go when desperate. He groans to himself, digging his nose into the gap between his knees. He really hopes Izuku's okay. He hopes he didn't fuck their relationship up. He'd never be able to forgive himself if he lost Izuku because of this. Shota's arm is around Izuku's shoulders when they finally return and make it back to campus. He's content tucked under his guardian's arm, is so genuinely relieved Shota doesn't hate him. The dorms are quiet when they make their way back into the dorm, and Izuku doesn't even need to look at the clock to know that it's well past curfew. It's pitch black outside, and the lack of piers and lights on in the common area of their dormitories means everyone had respected the curfew Shota enforced, even without the man around to enforce it, and were tucked away in their dorms for the night. Izuku refuses to acknowledge the breath of relief he lets out when he realizes this. He'd been worried about what his peers would say when he came back after being chased out of the dorms by their teacher, like Izuku had committed some vile crime. He knows they'd be curious about that, but he's so glad that he can worry about it later. He's already worried about too much, and that's honestly the least of his worries. Shota guides Izuku into the elevator, and they ride up silently. Shota faintly tightens his grip around Izuku when the doors open on the top floor, and it feels like the man is silently trying to comfort him. Izuku sucks in a nervous breath, taking it for what it is. They hardly make it in the door when Izuku is suddenly engulfed in someone's arm, tugged tightly into someone, definitely Hizashi's chest, arms wrapped around him, and he's squeezed desperately, nearly to the point that he can't breathe, but there's something so comforting about someone wanting to hold him so desperately. "Sweetheart," Hisashi coos, sounding wrecked with emotion in his voice. Guilt twists at Izuku's heart as he finally lifts his arms to return the embrace, tears welling in his eyes. "I was so worried, darling," Hisashi continues gently. "You're never allowed to do that again, you hear? No running off without telling us where you're going. I don't care what's going through that clever little head of yours. You can't ever run from us like that again, okay? Never think that you need to resort to running when it comes to Shota and I, all right?" "I'm sorry," Izuku snivels quietly as he buries his face in Hizashi's chest. "So sorry, Papa." Hisashi tenses for just a second, and Izuku tenses in response. Had Hisashi not? Did he not want Izuku to? Then, all at once, the man lets out the tension, and it bleeds from his frame as he blows out a shaky breath, burying his nose in Izuku's curls as he tightens his hold comfortingly. His voice sounds even more emotional when he continues. "I know, sunshine. It's okay. You're okay. We're not mad. Don't be sorry, okay?" Izuku lets his own tension melt away, holding Hisashi back tighter. Hisashi clutches at him for a good couple seconds, and Izuku doesn't have the heart to pull away. He doesn't even know if he wants to pull away. He'd run, not knowing what his relationship with his guardians would look like when they finally knew what he was. He'd never in a million years thought they'd be hugging him after finding out. He was prepared for a lot of outcomes when his secret came to light, but this certainly wasn't one of them. "Where's Hitoshi?" Shota's voice is what breaks them from their embrace. But he snakes his hand into Izuku's own and gives a light squeeze as if Hisashi can't bear to not have a point of contact between them. It's almost as if he thinks if he's not touching Izuku in some way, he could disappear without a trace. Maybe him running had affected his guardians more than he'd first assumed. "I sent him downstairs at curfew," Hisashi explains. "It's not like he needs to be a part of this talk. He already knows more than we do, doesn't he? Dorm jail, for the smart mouth who tried to scare me when I was already fragile." "What?" Izuku can't help but ask. "Don't worry about it," Shota snorts out, flapping a dismissive hand. "How do you feel about talking? We can wait if you'd like, but I don't think this is something that'll get easier the longer you wait." "But we'll do this all on your time, sunshine," Hisashi adds hastily, giving Izuku's hand another light squeeze as if to add emphasis to how supportive he sounds. "Whenever you're ready." Hopefulness blossoms in his chest. Maybe this won't be as big of a disaster as it usually is. He hadn't wanted to hang on to any false hope that Shota and Hisashi might be different than his mom, dad, and everyone else who'd ever learned his secret, but maybe he was wrong. Shota leads them both into the living room after Izuku nods cautiously. He freezes when he spots Oboro. The ghost jolts up, so he's standing when they enter, freezing just as the teenager had when he and Izuku make eye contact. There's a tense second where neither of them moves, like a weird staring contest of sorts. "Izuku," Oboro finally croaks out. "I'm so sorry about what I said." There's a prompting squeeze on his hand that draws Izuku from his own stupor, gaze shooting to Hisashi. The man hesitates when he has Izuku's attention. "He's here, isn't he?" "Oboro?" Izuku swallows roughly, bowing his head in a nod. "Yeah." Izuku's mouth feels dry as he admits. On the love seat, don't sit on him. It's cold for you and he flails. It's a whole thing. Oh, wow. Oboro breathes out, plopping back down onto his seat with an odd expression. This is happening. This is happening fast. You never talk so openly about me. You never warn people about where I am, and... Hey, wait, I do not flail. Izuku ducks his head, biting back a laugh. Oboro clears his throat, drawing Izuku's attention back. Are you sure you're ready for this, Izuku? This is a big step. I know I was pushy earlier, but I never meant to push you, you know? I know. Izuku hopes he offers a crooked smile, but it might be more of a spooked grimace. There's no going back now. How do we do this? What do you guys know? Shota and Hisashi are both staring intently at the love seat, like Oboro will suddenly materialize before them at just speaking about him. Izuku knows it won't happen, and the ghost is wisely keeping his distance for now. He seems beyond excited that they're even looking in his direction, though. That they have a faint idea that he's there with them. Let's sit, Shota suggests slowly, gaze never flicking away from the love seat. Hisashi and I will take the couch, and you... wherever you feel comfortable, Izuku. Izuku chooses to perch on the coffee table between everyone. He feels comfortable there, not overwhelmed or smothered or trapped, whether by a clingy ghost or caring guardians. Well, Hisashi bites his lip, glancing at Shota. Where did you meet him? At school, Izuku informs quietly, just as he had when telling Shota at the beach. He'd followed Shota into the classroom, and I thought, he looks like a regular student to me. I was wrong. I swear, I didn't even know he was your friend. I don't know what I thought, but I didn't figure out you guys used to be friends until you guys took me in, and I saw the picture of the three of you. And he's been... Hisashi's gaze flicks to the love seat, where he can't see anything. He's just been around. All this time. Yes. Izuku nods slowly, interlacing his hands together in his lap. He never left. He's been keeping an eye on you guys, and he's been watching out for me too. Has been since we met. I don't think I'd be here if Oboro wasn't around. Hisashi sucks in a fearful breath as Shota swallows anxiously. At the USJ, Shota starts cautiously. He was there, wasn't he? Izuku chances a glance at Oboro. He was. He was trying to help you, and when he couldn't, when the Nomu came for me, I don't know. I used his quirk, maybe? That's the first time we ever touched, and then his quirk, I've never been able to do that before. Honest, but it happened, and neither of us knew what had happened, and, well... The clouds. Hisashi blinks owlishly, processing. Mineta and Asui told me about the clouds, and then Shota. I don't know if you remember this, but you told me you saw Oboro with Izuku. You were pretty high on the pain meds, but I don't know. I never stopped thinking about it, and you saw clouds too. Oh my god. Izuku blinks wide-eyed at Shota. You saw Oboro? I didn't know what I saw. Shota admits awkwardly. I had very serious head trauma, and I thought I just saw what I wanted to see, Oboro watching out for my kids. If I couldn't be there, I was glad he was. I don't remember anything after that. The clouds, Hisashi continues curiously, slowly piecing each incident involving Oboro together. The sports festival. The clouds were there too. Izuku, was he there that day? Ah, right. That one was completely on me, Oboro says sheepishly. All of them are completely on you, Izuku retorts with a huff. Izuku pauses, glancing back at his guardians before continuing sheepishly. That time was an accident too. Hitoshi's quirk. Oboro panicked a little when I was under his control, and he tried to catch me before I could fall. We couldn't really control it. It works a lot like Black Whip, or it did at the beginning. It was only overwhelming emotions that activated it. Fear mostly. Okay. Hisashi lets out a slow breath as if trying to calm himself down. I really don't like the thought of either of you being scared enough to activate a quirk neither of you knew existed. Shota grimaces in agreement. What about the night I found you, Izuku? Oboro winces as Izuku turns to look at him. Oh, yep, definitely me. I led him to you using street lamps. It wasn't my finest work, but it got the job done. It's not my fault that the idiot followed the lights. You lured him from patrol by flickering streetlights? Izuku gapes in surprise. This is news to him. Oboro had never really explained how he'd brought Shota to Izuku that night. Made sense, though. Hisashi whips around to face a guilty-looking Shota. You followed weird random lights leading you off of your patrol route in the middle of the night without any backup? Shota. Babe. Love of my life. You're too smart to act this stupid. I found the kid, Shota huffs.
What does it matter now anyways? Like you wouldn't follow a runway of lights, directing you somewhere. I barely even believed it at the time. Yeah, Oboro crosses his arms over his chest. It worked out in the end anyways. And how else did you expect me, a ghost, to lead someone who can't even see me to you? Don't dwell on it, bygones or whatever, right?
Izuku snorts a laugh. I can see how you two were best friends.
He sided with Shota, didn't he? Hisashi cries out. Typical.
Izuku just laughs harder. Shota and Hisashi exchange a fond look that Izuku only sees out of the corner of his eye, but something about that look had relief settling in his chest.
Okay, Shota cocks his head. What about Hosu? Hypothermia. It wasn't really one for all that hurt you, was it? Yagi seemed surprised by that, like he hadn't thought such a thing was even possible.
Oboro wilts guiltily, and Izuku can't help but wince.
Well, technically it played a part in it, Izuku admits awkwardly.
He glances down at his hands. First and I, the first wielder of One for All, who I can sometimes see because of the whole ghost thing, he, helped me understand what happened. It was a bit of everything. Todoroki-kun's ice, Oboro using me and my energy, and the vestiges, and they'd been feeding off of me too while I was with Gran Torino, just... Cold overload, Hisashi suggested quietly.
Yeah, Izuku lets out an awkward laugh.
Basically.
That explains why Yagi never knew, Shota adds thoughtfully. He doesn't know about this original quirk, does he?
No one knows. Izuku shakes his head guiltily. No one but Kachan and Hitoshi, and my family, of course, and Kachan's family, but they think it went away because I never mentioned it. You already know none of that ended well.
We know now. Hisashi smiles softly. And we're not going anywhere. No one else needs to know, but we'll protect you and stand by you even if you do want to tell people. Izuku offers a tiny half-smile in response. Shota clears his throat. I was also wondering about that fight between Yagi and All for One. Was Oboro there for that at all? When the League had you in Bakugo?
Well, I think he was with Hitoshi, Izuku admits with a frown. He wasn't with me when I got pulled through the portal, so he didn't know where I was either. Toshi said Oboro helped him, and Oboro sorta told me what had happened. As soon as he found me, he was with me, and I made him use his quirk. He made that storm cloud.
He made a storm cloud? Hisashi's attention flicks to the love seat in surprise. I've never seen him make anything but white clouds. That's... wow. Shota looks equally as bewildered at that.
I think One for All might play a role in that. Izuku bows his head anxiously. Yagi-san told me the energy stockpiling nature of One for All makes other quirks stronger when they're melded into it, like, Black Whip, I think. Maybe since Oboro uses me, which is my quirk, and I'm bound to One for All by DNA, I think it might make him stronger too, just by relation.
Shota and Hisashi exchange a look. That makes sense. We don't know very much about your super quirk, Hisashi adds quietly. Izuku nods, unsure of what to say in response to that. He's sure admitting that he doesn't know much more about One for All is not a smart move right now, so he keeps the thought to himself.
Was there anything else you guys were wondering about?
What about your supposed guardian angel that Koda was talking about after the training camp attack? Shota arches an eyebrow in question. Was that Oboro?
Koda was talking about a guardian angel?
I don't know if I'd call him an angel, Izuku admits awkwardly, ignoring Oboro's offended, hey! Probably him. How about that friend of yours that Eri keeps talking about?
Oboro, Izuku admits sheepishly. We had a tea party to help her settle in. People say kids are very in tune with spiritual stuff. I was just as surprised, honestly.
What about your inattentiveness in class?
He's a distraction, Dad, Izuku said seriously, lips twitching into a smile. From day one, that's not my fault. He's a very bad influence when I'm trying to focus.
That's a little overdramatic, Zuku, Oboro whines. What are you trying to do, get me in trouble?
In the arcade. How you knew about the cat eraser in the story? He was there too, Papa. Izuku glances back at Oboro, whose cheeks puff out as if he's offended by that cat eraser event all over again. I, got that story in detail. He's still a little offended.
The cat plushie?
Oboro picked it.
Shota and Hisashi both suck in surprised breaths after the rapid-fire questions.
So he's just...
Hisashi's tone is misty as he drags palms down his face.
He's always been around. Whenever you're around, so is he always watching over us and looking out for you? He's been so close all this time and we never even knew.
Izuku nods before looking between the two of them, cautiously.
You're both taking this surprisingly well. We can't change this, Shota offers, though he does look like this is all starting to get overwhelming. Trust me, kid, we're still wrapping our heads around this and trying not to freak out, but only because it's... His voice breaks off. Because it's Oboro. I'm sorry, Izuku offers again. No. Hisashi dry washes his face and his hands before smiling softly at Izuku. Nothing to apologize for, Sunshine. This is actually... Good. I'm surprised. Don't get me wrong, and I'm trying hard to process this, but I've missed him so much, you dig? I saw him. You let us see him again. He's there. When we thought he was gone. You're a blessing, baby. A blessing? Izuku swallows as tears spring to his eyes. He's been called a lot of things. A blessing is not one of them. Izuku fists hard at his eyes in an attempt to stem off the tears. It doesn't really work. He lets out a broken laugh. Anyways, and he's wiping his face once again. That's a new one, Papa. A new one that suits you perfectly, sweetheart, Hisashi says fondly. Hisashi pauses, looking back at the love seat thoughtfully. He stares for a long second as if trying to see or even sense Oboro there before his eyes return to Izuku. Do you think you could do it again, Sunshine? Do what? Izuku asked dumbly. Make him visible. Hisashi lets out an almost humorless laugh, rubbing at the back of his neck. I just need to see him again if you can make it happen. Don't hurt yourself, of course, and don't force yourself either. Izuku hesitates. He studies Hisashi before his calculating gaze jumps to Shota, who looks interested and hopeful, before finally letting his gaze settle back on Oboro, who hasn't moved from the love seat. Izuku turns back to Oboro, holding his hand out as an invitation for the ghost to take it, if he chooses to. For a long second, the ghost just stares at the offering before his gaze flicks up to Shota and Hisashi. He inches close until he's settled on the table beside Izuku. Oboro sets his hand in Izuku's, and Izuku interlaces their fingers easily. He knows it's worked, again, when both of his guardians draw in surprised breaths. Oboro seems to have realized that as well, as his eyes water. Hi, Hisashi. Oboro offers a wobbly smile. Hey, Sho. Both men are staring at him, tears welling in their eyes. A long second of silence drags on until Oboro clears his throat. Can I just be the first to congratulate you both on your new son? Come on, where's the smiles, boys? You know just as well as I that everyone's been waiting for the kid to finally christen you two into parenthood with a dad and a papa. Tell me I'm not the only one who noticed the swift transition. Izuku sputters, whipping around to scowl at Oboro, while Shota lets out a humored breath, wiping at his eyes, as Hisashi also breaks out into a watery laugh as well, as he runs his palms down his cheeks. Oboro! Izuku squawks out in embarrassment. You waited until now that you're visible and they can see and hear you, to say that? You're the worst. Well, yeah. Oboro snorts, his own voice coming out a little emotional now. It needed to be said. You'd only been worried about it for months. I told you they'd like it, didn't I? Look at that. Tears, just like I said. I don't think they're crying because of that, dude, Izuku mutters under his breath. You've been worried about calling us Dad and Papa? Hisashi coos kindly through his tears. Oh, sweetheart. You can call us whatever you want, but we're more than happy to be your Dad and Papa. Izuku kind of wishes the ground would open up and swallow him whole, but he somehow manages to shove aside the embarrassment. It takes some effort, but Hisashi seems to force his gaze away from Izuku and back onto Oboro. Hisashi stares at Oboro for a long second, and Izuku wonders what the blonde is thinking. He wonders what both of his guardians are thinking, actually. This is a lot to process, even for Izuku, and he's always known about the ghosts. Hisashi's features soften, even more, if that's even possible. Can we touch him? He asks on a bated breath. Is he solid for us, too? I don't know. Izuku makes a winded sound, glancing calculatingly over at Oboro, who looks just as intrigued. Never thought they'd get this far, hadn't even considered it. Until that afternoon, they hadn't even known Oboro was visible. This is a new level of experimental for them. Hisashi smiles. I really want to hug him. Bring it in, buddy. Oboro prompts, eyes wide at the thought of hugging his friend, again after all these years. Just don't be too upset if it doesn't work, okay? Maybe Izuku's the only one with that special touch, you know? Don't say that about our kid, idiot. Shota scoffs out a wet laugh. Hisashi's the first to cross the room, bending down, and then his arms wrap around Oboro. The ghost inhales in surprise. Before he's clutching back at his friend, Izuku's hand is dragged along with Oboro's when he wraps around the blonde. Izuku doesn't mind the odd angle and the weird muscle strain. Oboro, Hisashi whimpers into the ghost's shoulder. I missed you. I bet I missed you more, the ghost whispers back. Oboro turns his head to the side, offering Shota another wobbly smile. Gonna let me get all the action from your husband? Bring it in, dude, come on. Don't... You know it's rude to leave a ghost hanging. I've been deprived. Shota snorts out a sound that suspiciously sounds like a cry as he joins them too, wrapping his arms around Oboro as well, until the hug between the school friends is more a tangle of limbs. Izuku's chest feels warm as he watches, keeping quiet so as not to disturb them. The ghost all but melts into their embrace, smiling so wide Izuku doesn't know how it doesn't hurt. Oboro buries his face between Shota and Hisashi's shoulders, drawing in a shaky breath as if breathing them in after so long. I never thought I'd get to hug you two again, Oboro finally mutters, squeezing at Izuku's hand as he clutches harder at his friend's. You two really know how to pick a son, don't you? A blessing chooses you, Hisashi warbles into Oboro's shoulder, squeezing tighter. Not the other way around, buddy. All right, everyone. This concludes Chapter 48 of Yuuei Survival Guide. Chapter 49 will be next. We've got 2 more chapters to go in this fic. Please let me know what you guys think of this chapter, because it's my absolute favorite in the entire fic. I love it so much, and I reread it now a lot. And honestly, the willpower to get through this chapter without crying while recording was really tough. As always, though, thank you all so much for listening.